This video is looking at the Elizabeth Brewster poem Where I Come From. And I'm going to assume that you've got a copy of the poem, that you've read it, that you've generally kind of had your own thoughts and maybe studied the poem in class, because I know it's on the Cambridge syllabus at the moment. What I'm going to do is if you look at the annotation on the screen, it looks a bit busy at the moment. I'm going to talk through this, add in any ideas that spring to mind as we're doing that. And then hopefully you will have more idea of the context and the thoughts behind my general scribble. But it's also kind of be aware that there are other alternative interpretations out there. There are ideas. And the way of dealing with these poems is not to kind of have to choose one or the other, but to run different ideas in tandem to say, it could mean this, or alternatively, it could be understood to mean this. And especially with this poem, there's a lot of kind of areas of potential ambiguity here. So where Brewster's saying one thing and really leaving it up to us to kind of make a decision about how we are going to interpret that for ourselves. So kind of my overview of the poem and view on the titles, sort of where I come from. If you look at that as a phrase, you can see I've got those three little lines coming out there. And any amendments I put on will be in pink, so you can maybe see where I'm talking about. So where I come from initially, I would take that as a geographical reference, maybe where you started your life, where you originated. It could also be a social or a cultural reference, referring to the shared experience of your family, your culture, and your ideas. But I'd also take it as kind of emotionally, if you take the idiom, do you understand where I'm coming from? It's something we say as a sort of emotional plea or an urging to somebody else to look at our perspective, our point of view, sometimes to agree with us. If you'd say to somebody, do you see where I'm coming from? You're appealing to them to try and take on, how you are thinking of something rather than just sticking to their own viewpoint. The other part of that bit in the title, I would say, is this label here that says personal, because it's where I come from. And from that kind of sense, it's a strange poem because she doesn't start straight away where I come from. There is a progression in the poem. So if you're looking at how the poem develops, especially if you're writing about it in an essay or an assessment, you'd be looking at saying, Brewster opens the poem with a more general viewpoint, a more general assertion of her belief that people are influenced by their backgrounds, their places, where they come from, I guess, to then kind of apply her own personal experience to that, to finally end with that insight into her own psyche, potentially. And the spelling of psyche, meaning kind of mind, the way you're functioning, think of psychology, is there. Because, that would then tie in, it seems to me, with this meaning, where I come from. Well, it's that door in your mind. It's what kind of happens when you're maybe not expecting it, what happens. I've got the note later on in terms of memory rising unbidden, or kind of, thoughts rising unbidden, kind of uncensored, to those doors opening, where you come from, your emotional perspective or your view on the world. If we look then at the first line, I think it's always interesting when you can run on the title into the first line, because that gives us two potential understandings. Okay, because if we just kind of take the title out of it for a moment, we do have this kind of assertion. People are made of places, that kind of opening metaphor. It's largely monosyllabic. I know we've got the people in there stopping it being entirely monosyllabic, but it's assertive, it's confident. You've got the caesura, just giving you that kind of moment of kind of decision or kind of the space in which to kind of think about that claim. We've got the plosive alliteration linking the kind of people and the places. And as ever with plosive alliteration, you've got the kind of sense of a force behind it. But the people are made of places. We're going to take that notion and look at, the people who come from kind of, I suppose, the extreme or the exotic climates. We've got the people who come from the cities, the people who come from the kind of hard work, manual labor, education, offices, bureaucracy, then through to maybe Brewster's own Canadian sort of heritage in terms of the more natural, wild environment where if mankind has been able to take a hold, that hold is slipping. But we've also got the potential for running on that title. So actually the claim is that where I come from, people are made of places, right? So that could maybe just tweak it to being a claim that she views her ability or her kind of approach is to look at people and the influence of their backgrounds. So, you know, if I don't know if you can follow me with it. If you say, where I come from, people are made of places, it's like, where I'm from, we believe this, or where I'm from, we kind of have this ability to detect this or sense that. So I just kind of explore that as an idea as well. We then have, you know, the second part of the first line. They carry with them hints of jungles or mountains, a tropic grace, or the cool eyes of sea gazers. And I've picked up on the idea of carry as being, you know, our first idea of, is this positive or is this negative? You can carry something with you because it's precious. You want to keep it. You're making that conscious decision to hold it close. Or you can carry something as a burden, as a problem, as something you can't get rid of. So one way or another, all of these kind of, you know, backgrounds and places, they are with you. They are something that, you know, you are shifting. Even if you leave geographically, you don't leave emotionally. So they carry with them hints of jungles or mountains. That just, you know, I think that we've got this space here at the end. They carry with them. What do they carry with them? Well, we've got the possibility, and then the enjambed line, hints of jungles or mountains. So there's this kind of connection and confidence of the people are made of places, then kind of moves to kind of these natural hints. Okay. And again, this seems to be slightly more positive than we move into in the rest of the stanza, because the hints of jungles or mountains, you know, those kind of what I referred to before as the more kind of extreme or climates, got that tropic grace or the cool eyes of sea gazers. So tropic, I would pick up on the connotations of heat and passion and maybe a kind of subjectivity, or the cooler clinical pragmatism. If you are pragmatic, you are putting kind of sense over sentimentality. You're putting kind of logic over emotion. You're going for the kind of most expedient solution, regardless of the emotional effect. And our sea gazers, gazing, again, just in itself is a more kind of leisurely appraisal than a kind of glare or a stare or even a look. You know, we've got, you know, these are people who are gracefully tropic or kind of coolly gazing out into everything the sea represents. Then there's a kind of shift, and you know, we've got kind of ideas that deal with possibility. You know, these kind of connections in this first stanza. Everything in the poem is intangible. You know, people are made of places, so we're dealing in the world of metaphor, and we're dealing in the world of kind of comparisons to things. We're not saying, you know, these are physical things. You know, people do not have woods in their minds. People do not carry with them kind of a hint of a jungle. But these are all kind of here intangible. Just want to kind of flag out the fact that down here, okay, if we just go into the second stanza, the things that the people have in their mind there are more tangible. Like I would say it's different for having a tropic grace, you know, grace being that abstract noun, to having woods, you know, woods, acres of pine forest, you know, that is a physical thing. Okay. But here we then shift. So when I say here, I mean atmosphere of cities. Once we switch into the cities, which is the man-made kind of more unnatural environment. Is that atmosphere of cities, how different drops from them. And the syntax here is slightly odd. There's a kind of sense that you have to kind of read it a few times, say, well, what actually does this mean? We pick up this kind of monosyllabic bluntness. Again, we've got the plosive kind of different drops from them. Is it, the things that drop from them are different? Is the difference the thing that's dropping from them? But she then kind of tries to list those things, because people from cities, they don't have this hint of the grace or the cool eyes. They have the smell of smog or the almost not smell of tulips in the spring. Now, these are all olfactory images. They're to do with scent, they're to do with smell. So the smell of smog, slight kind of suffocation in that sibilance there. And again, the kind of guttural g, the G sound at the end, emphasizing that. You get the almost not smell of tulips in the spring, something that's kind of in the city. It's almost like, you cannot detect that kind of natural side. If city, spring in the city would be different. You're not getting that kind of huge burst of nature everywhere. There's the more subtlety to it, because we move on to the idea that nature has been tidily plotted in little squares. Nature is not personified as it normally is. It kind of has been something that has been planned. It's acted upon rather than a personification doing the acting. The idea that creativity has been planned, something spontaneous has been deliberately mapped out. Plotting in little squares is, that the consonants of the tidally plotted in little, the ta kind of sign, gives you the idea of it being packed away, deliberately diminished in this kind of manicured environment. I've also just put a little note there that, spring isn't one of the chief seasons she refers to underneath. I'm not quite sure where I'd go with that yet, but it occurred to me that it was worth flagging up. Fountains are the most manicured, the most kind of planned and artificial sense of water. And so to put water in the center of something, yes, but it's a fountain. It's kind of very controlled. We have this, the caesura there, the semicolon, leading then into, museum smell. Not only is the water curated, curation is that art of kind of arranging things in a museum or a gallery for best effect. But there's kind of museum smell. And I take museum, the connotations being, that the past has been held on to, has been captured, maybe a little bit of stagnation in that it's not a fresh air that you will get elsewhere. You get the art is also tidily plotted, and it kind of seems, it stands out. This tidily plotted kind of stands out just because it's repeated in such close proximity, and very deliberately kind of it's also, and it's almost as if the speaker can't think of another way of describing this, the kind of sense of these two free things, creativity and art, and or the creativity in art and nature rather, has all been mapped out. That's what it's been done. The same thing has been done to art as has been done to nature. And it's tidily plotted with a guidebook. You can't wander around enjoying it. You need these instructions. Or the smell of work. Again, smell, we're really kind of going for that kind of the aura people are giving off. And glue factories, I don't know whether or not you've read Animal Farm and Boxer and the like, but glue was traditionally made of boiling up animal bones, and it has that horrible, sticky, suffocating, really unpleasant smell to it. So, if you are somebody who is carrying with you the fact that, your aura or whatever is glue factory, that's kind of throwing up a whole load of kind of claustrophobia and kind of death and just something that maybe, what is it you can't escape? Because if we take it that, you know, these lists are all things, vibes that people are giving off, if you like. And, you know, if you're giving off glue factory, then that's a bit kind of ugh. Likewise, if we look at the fact, you know, chromium plated offices, I put down, you know, harsh metallic bureaucracy. That's your background. The smell of subways and the sibilance there, that repeated S sound, again, kind of giving that sense of rushing and hissing and kind of packed in and then kind of flowing off. The smell of subways, and not just subways, but that kind of enjambment leading crowded at rush hours. Okay. So it's almost a kind of overwhelming list, the cumulative effect of all of those things. You know, these are presumably things that she has noticed from people, what these people are made of, what they are carrying around with them. And then she moves to give you this space, and it's kind of space, this white space and the kind of drop line. So she's still on the same line, really, but is just giving space for that kind of reflection and that pause, for the focus shift to say, well, where I come from, people carry woods in their minds. Okay, so her kind of geography of things, her background is to take it that actually, you know, people carry something that is natural, but that is big with them. Acres of pine woods, that kind of vast expanse coming from the repetition. You know, they carry blueberry patches in the burned out bush, which is a kind of lovely image of the kind of sweetness of, or those little kind of patches of sweetness and devastation. But the plosives giving the idea of the kind of power or life force asserting itself, an idea of resilience. You know, it might be burned out wilderness, but the blueberries will grow there. You have the wooden farmhouses, so that image of living in nature alongside nature, but they are old and in need of paint. So are they returning to nature, or are they dilapidated? You know, has this speaker, or has, you know, the society from which this speaker comes actually lost the ability to care for that way of life and those places that are influencing them? They're in need of paint, you know, who is there to kind of help them out, who is there to repair them? And the yards where hens and chickens circle about, a slightly longer line, maybe, you know, giving a sense of either relaxation or pointlessness. You know, is this a kind of background where it's fine, you know, nature is working at its own pace, the poultry is free to just kind of cluck about in the yard aimlessly, onomatopoeia on the clucking there. Or is this kind of a sense of lack of direction? The battered schoolhouses behind which violets grow, you know, take the idea of the endurance of education, the idea of, you know, there being education, but it's taken a bit of a pounding maybe, and the violets are growing behind it. You know, is that because of the schoolhouse, or is that despite the schoolhouse? Have you got that creativity and beauty which the violets might represent, you know, hand in hand with the education? Or is it kind of something different? You have the kind of spring and winter, and what strikes me is that they're in the wrong order. You know, it's normally winter becomes spring, and these are the mind's chief seasons, not my mind's chief seasons at this point, but the mind's chief seasons. So, you know, there is an idea that this could be universal. This is, you know, an experience for everybody, or at least everybody in this environment, and that caesura, the colon there, acts as a kind of gateway to saying, well, actually spring and winter is ice and the breaking of ice, and there actually we get those two things reversed again. Okay, so there's this kind of mixing up, this idea of the cycles, the seasons, a process, you know, and progress, or kind of something cyclical, like a lack of progress, that, you know, you break the ice and then it freezes over, you break the ice and then it freezes over. So, you know, there might be an element that this, because we're becoming more psychological, is this emotional? Is this a kind of, you know, you have to keep kind of making these relationships, renewing them, working at them? but these are not, put down here this thought, these are not the manicured sense of the kind of cities above. These are objects of the mind a little bit more. These are violets and buildings and hens and chickens, etc. We then have that kind of, the end stop. So we're reflecting on this process of ice and breaking of ice. You might want to pick up on the kind of hay there, that harshness, possibly even a little bit onomatopoeic, that mimetic effect of the kind of the breaking of ice. Then we move to this final couplet, which is sort of a half rhyming couplet because we've got blows and snow, so it doesn't fit exactly, but it's the nearest we get to a rhyme really in the poem. I'm just checking that as I say that. I don't think there are any other rhymes. Are we looking? No, I think we're good. Yeah. Okay, so a door in the mind blows open. So, we've got maybe the kind of plosive of the blah there. But the idea of the assonance kind of throwing something open, a longer kind of gaping sound. And that this is kind of nature reasserting itself in the mind. This is not the kind of city. This is, the nature that was kept in little boxes in the city is now actually able, where Brewster comes from, or where Brewster's speaker comes from, probably where Brewster comes from, is the thing that's getting out of its boxes. And that is affecting your psyche. And that is, why you are carrying around these things with you, because these memories are and these influences are unbidden. So they kind of, if something blows the door open, there has been a barrier put up, which is then pushed open, and there blows a frosty wind from fields of snow, that, all of a sudden there is that access to the mind. Again, maybe not her mind. Yeah. And there blows a frosty wind from the fields of snow. And then we have that kind of, again, it's a sort of statement, it's not, sometimes this happens. It's, well, this happens. Okay. It's that kind of present tense, that this is an ongoing process, that the idea that if people are made of places, there's this constant connection, there is a kind of influence or a shift there all the time. And so, free verse, form and structure wise, you've got that idea of people's individuality, people's responses, the freedom, the kind of idea that everybody is differently affected from where they come from, and that this isn't predictable. You can be wandering around and all of a sudden the door in the mind blows open, and then all of a sudden there's where you come from, influencing you again. If you're trying to work out sort of how to plan it, how to write about it, there is the definite progression going through. There's the kind of implicit comparison, the juxtaposition of city life and rural life or urban life. I would say there's kind of the use of ambiguity a lot of the time to kind of make suggestions about what she could mean. But it's very much a kind of poem where I don't think it's as simple as saying, city entirely bad, nature entirely good. I think it is looking at how different environments are shaping individuality and seeing where that goes. Okay, I hope that helps. Rather more musings than organized kind of dictating notes, but hopefully it helps. Good luck.